78% of us don't disclose our financial history to our partner before getting married, and it comes to bite us on the behind later. Money issues are the single strongest predictor of divorce. Whether you're married, in a committed relationship, or single, there are certain things you need to know about money and relationships. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi. If we haven't met before, my name is Jessica. On this channel, we talk all things money. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Let's talk about love, romance, and money. When should you talk about money in a relationship? The sooner, the better. Maybe not on the first date though. When you've spent enough time with a person to know that you want to continue this relationship, that's a good time. So maybe the first couple of months. This doesn't have to be intimidating. This doesn't have to be something serious. In the first couple of months of your relationship, you don't need to necessarily, find out what their credit score is or what their retirement account balance is, but you do need to start talking about money. There are so many ways to introduce this topic, and I know it's really difficult for a lot of people, a lot of us, because you know what? None of us really grows up with talking about money. I mean, if you're one of those people who did, then you are an anomaly. But for the most part, families don't talk about money. Parents certainly don't talk about money. As a matter of fact, it's almost considered taboo. I mean, people are more willing to talk about sex than they're willing to talk about money. So you can learn to talk about money. And when it comes to a relationship, especially a new relationship, you can introduce the topic gently and you can make it fun. It does not have to be intimidating. You can make it light, you can make it fun. And so today I'm going to talk about stages on how to introduce it and sort of, what's kind of the first stage in a relationship, what's the second stage, and the third stage, and so on. And if you are already in a committed relationship or you're already married, it's not too late. You can follow pretty much the same pattern and you can start talking about money if you are married. So let's talk about that first stage. Where should you start? Say you just started dating somebody, you've been in a relationship for a few months and you haven't really talked about money yet, or you are in a committed relationship, you're living together, or you're married and you don't really talk about money. So the first place that I personally like to start is ask some fun questions. It shouldn't be, oh, let's sit down and talk about money, or we need to talk. Please don't do that, because nobody likes that. And you can ask some fun questions. So I'll share my personal question with you, what I like to ask people, not only a romantic partner, but even friends or business partners. This is very revealing. And that question is this: if $1 million show up in your bank account tomorrow, what would you do? That's such a fun question. It's even fun to think about. It's fun to explore. And it is very revealing. So if somebody says to you, oh, if I got $1 million tomorrow, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to buy a brand new car, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to go on vacation, I'm going to, stay in Mexico for a month and drink margaritas, it's time to pause. And on the other hand, if somebody says to you, and I'm going to just use two extreme examples, so I'm going to use the other extreme example is on the other side, somebody might say, I'm not going to do anything different. I'm going to invest all of my money and I'm going to get myself into a financially free place. Now, not a lot of people think like that either, but somewhere in the middle even would be acceptable. But, what I'm looking for in those answers, especially in a partner, is somebody who thinks long term and values money. So if somebody says to me, if I won $1 million tomorrow, I'm going to, make sure my retirement accounts are topped up. I'm going to make sure all of my debt is paid off. And, if I don't have a house, maybe I'll buy a reasonable type of house. And then I might take 5% of that money and I'm just going to blow it on myself. I'd say perfect. Because it's not about all or nothing. It's about balance. So what you're looking for is somebody's thought process. It's not about the answers. I just gave you a whole bunch of answers, just kind of off the top of my head. You're looking for their thought process. How do they think about money? Because how they think about money is not going to change just because you marry them. One of my favorite quotes is by Maya Angelou. She said, "People show you who they are. Believe them the first time." Look, I'm not suggesting that you walk away from a person who answers this question in a way that you might not like, but that's a really good point for you to remember, and maybe even start digging in deeper to really see where they are. Then you can make a decision with your eyes wide open, but don't expect to marry that person who said they're going to blow all of their money, they're going to quit their job, buy a car, buy a house, buy a vacation, do all of that. If you marry them and a few years down the road, don't expect them to suddenly become financially responsible. So if you do end up being with them long term, you have to accept that about them. So that's a fun way, the first stage, to get that conversation going in a fun way that doesn't really put anybody on the spot, but it really reveals how they think. And it's a good question to ask yourself. What would you do if $1 million showed up in your account tomorrow? And as the relationship starts to get more serious, you're putting more time into the relationship. Now it's time to get to the second stage. Before you get too serious with anyone, you want to ask them a few questions, like what are their financial goals? What are their short-term goals? What are their long-term goals as far as the money is concerned? Ask them, how do they measure financial success? And see what they have to say. And this will be very revealing to you as well about who they are, about their personality. How do they measure financial success? The third question I would ask is, what are their beliefs about money? The fourth question I would ask is, did their family talk about money, or how did they talk about money, if they did? And that will be quite revealing as well. And once you have the answers to these questions, you're going to be sharing your part of it as well. At that point, you can determine whether or not you are compatible. And these are just general questions. Again, I'm not suggesting you stay with or leave somebody based on these answers. But again, it really gives you intel. You really want to know what you're getting yourself into. And you can think of your own questions. These are just some ideas to get you started and have some fun with it. Think of some other things that you would like to know about the person. And then you reach the third stage. Now, before you get into a very serious relationship, before you get married, before you move in together, these are the questions I suggest you must ask. And for some of you, these might be cringeworthy, but trust me, these will save you. Number one, how much debt do you have? I know, it's so personal, but it's so personal. You might say, I don't want to talk about it. You are gonna need to talk about this, my friend, because half of that debt's gonna become yours. So you better talk about it. How much debt do you have? The second follow-up question, what kind of debt is it? Mortgage debt is different from credit card debt. Do they have credit card debt? Do they have other loans? Do they have car loans? What other things do they owe? Do they have family loans? Student loans? So you want to make sure that you get very clear on what kind of loans they have. What kind of debt do they have? Third question, have they ever declared bankruptcy? You want to know that. Your financial future is going to be massively impacted if they have or have not declared bankruptcy. Question number 4, do they support anyone else financially? You need to know that. When you're dating, you're in that, romantic, chemically active phase. You don't really want to know what the reality is, but guess what? You are going to need to know what the reality is. So it's time to ask those direct questions. Do they have children outside of your relationship that they support? Do they have other family members they financially support or are obligated to support? You want to make sure that you go into this with eyes wide open. The last question, you can ask many more, but just for our conversation today, the last question I would ask at this stage is, do they save and invest regularly? If so, what percentage of their income do they generally tend to save and invest? So those are some of the direct money-related questions that you must ask at stage 3 before you get into a serious relationship. Now, there's that final question that is and is not money-related that you must ask. If you plan to have kids, you make sure that you talk about that. Or if you personally don't plan to have kids, so make sure that you ask your partner, what are their plans? Do they want to have kids? Don't they want to have kids? If both of you, because that's a deal breaker, that is such a huge life decision that if one of you does and one of you doesn't, that's a deal breaker. I don't care what they say in terms of willing to kind of come your way, or you're willing to make that sacrifice their way. That is going to come back to haunt you 100%. If both of you are on the same page, and let's say both of you want to have kids, then you need to talk about who is going to stay home with the kids, who's going to work, who's going to stay home with the kids. If you are going to make some big moves with the kids, whose career are you going to follow? All of these things, they are not romantic per se, but these are critical because they will make or break your relationship. So be sure to talk about this. If you're cringing listening to this, and if you think this is daunting to ask all these questions and talk about money at this level, think about it this way. You know what's more daunting than talking about this upfront? Divorce. Divorce is very daunting. Fighting custody battles is daunting. Starting over after you've put in 10, 15, 20, 30 years in a relationship and then starting over, that's daunting. The emotional trauma that you'll go through and your partner will go through, that's daunting. So spend the time up front. And remember, choosing a partner is one of the most significant financial decisions you will ever make. If you're not on the same page, it's going to show up in every part of your life, because money is an extremely important part of our daily life, whether we like it or not, whether we admit it or not. It just is. It's the number one things people fight about. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it's the number one reason and the number one predictor of divorce. So knowing all of that, why not do yourself a favor and start talking about this and get on the same page? And if you are already married, if you're already in a committed relationship, follow kind of the same process. Start talking about money, start gently and get on the same page. There's nothing more beautiful than a partnership where both of you are on the same page, both of you are working towards your goal, and both of you are committed, and both of you are creating a life together, because in that sense, 1 and 1 can equal 11 rather than 1 and 1 equaling 2. But you have to do it right. If you are already in a committed relationship, then set up some regular times with your partner and talk about money, whether it's once a month or once every couple weeks. Talk about money and make it fun to talk about money. It's fun to track your goals. It's fun to see your progress together. So make sure that you make that a regular part of your life. That is it for today. Don't forget to leave me a comment down below. Tell me, where are you in this situation? Are you planning to start this conversation, or do you already have some ideas and some best practices that you could share with us? Do that down below in the comments section. And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button. I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.